Hey folks, lyarri here. Today we're reacting to Who Took the First Selfie? Really? By Vsauce. Haven't reacted to a Vsauce video in a while. Excited to get back into it. Let's go.
Hey, Vsauce! Michael here. On July 1st of 2015, a long-standing ban was lifted. Visitors were finally allowed to take selfies at the White House.
Thank God.
This is the first legal selfie ever taken on a White House tour. But a year before the ban was lifted, in February of 2014, I met with the president and secretly took an illegal selfie while on the toilet in the West Wing. Thanks, Obama.
She should go to jail.
Why am I admitting to this crime now? Well, it's time for the truth. Who took the first selfie?
Did the statute of limitations expire?
Really? Very few people would call this a
Guantanamo.
selfie, but it is the
Guantanamo for
oldest
sure.
known self-portrait, a depiction someone made of themselves that includes head and shoulders. It was sculpted more than 3,000 years ago by Pharaoh Akhenaten's first chief royal sculptor, a guy named Bek. Next to himself, Bek sculpted his wife, Taharet, making this also a contender for oldest known Ussie.
They're so
But
cute
the roots
together.
of the selfie go back further than this. We have been making things that resemble ourselves in whole or in part, intentionally or not, for as long as there's been cause and effect. Just looking into a pool of water creates a kind of selfie, a primitive, ephemeral one that you can't preserve or send to anyone, but it is
Yes.
undeniably an image of the self made by the self. Even the earliest life forms on Earth were capable to some degree of self-discrimination. They could differentiate themselves from the environment around them. They have inside them, in some chemical form, a crude, pre-conscious sense of themselves. I call things like that a first-wave selfie. First-wave selfies are unintentional, automatic, or accidental resemblances something makes of itself in whole or in part, like prehistoric human footprints or the mental images animals have of their own bodies. The first big leap in selfie history, the second wave, began with the first intentional depictions of oneself. Second wave selfies include everything from Chauvet Cave's 32,000-year-old hand
That looks
stencil prints
bloody.
to the paintings of Jan van Eyck and Judith Leister. But in the 19th century, self-depiction changed in another major way. A technology emerged that allowed likenesses of the self to be made faster and
Whoa.
with less skill, that seemed more accurate, less mediated, and more indexical than ever before.
The cell phone.
Photography ushered in the third wave selfie.
Hilarious.
In the fall of 1839, outside his family's lamp and chandelier store in Philadelphia, 30-year-old Robert Cornelius stood completely still for about 15 minutes in front of a camera he'd built using a modified opera glass and a sheet of silver-plated copper. The result was a significant image. It can be found on his gravestone in Philadelphia's Laurel Hill Cemetery. The Smithsonian calls it the first selfie. But they also don't. In that same fall of 1839, a man named Henry Fitz Jr. took a photograph of himself in Baltimore. Smithsonian Magazine and pretty much everyone else has called Cornelius's selfie the first. But in their archives, the Smithsonian calls Fitz Jr.'s the first. The reason for this confusion is that, honestly, we don't know which of these came first. All we can be sure of is that neither of them is the first. Hippolyte Bayard, a Frenchman, wrote of taking a photo of himself in 1837, 2 years before these. But it's been lost. And other, even earlier examples may have been lost as well. Because these are photographs people took of themselves, it's largely uncontroversial to call them selfies. But they're not like selfies. If you've seen my video, Is Cereal Soup, you know what I just did there. Contrastive focus reduplication. That's when you repeat a word in order to focus on prototypical examples in contrast to edge cases.
I do
For
that.
example, we went on a date last night, but it wasn't a date. In that statement, I'm contrasting what I did last night, which might have been a date, to a true date, which is obviously a date. Okay,
For sure.
anyway, the point is, no one called these selfies when they were taken. They were photographic self-portraits. The word selfie wouldn't even exist for another 160 years after they were taken. So at some point between this and this, our relationship to
I'm top
self-depiction
left.
changed, and our vocabulary had to expand to discuss it. What rough beast emerged to make the coining of selfie necessary? Well, let's keep going. Around 1846, Czech photographer M.V. Lobathal took the earliest known selfie with a mirror. This, of course, would become a classic selfie technique.
Yeah.
Mirrors
Love that
provided
one.
an easy, early way to capture the self with a camera. But in my opinion,
She
this
looks
mirror
good.
selfie from around 1900 is the most arresting. I think you die at least 3 times. Once when your body stops living, again, usually sometime later when your name is spoken for the last time. But now, thanks to photography, more and more of us are able to save ourselves from the third, the last time an image of you is seen. The identity of this woman
Yeah.
is unknown. That makes it the oldest known selfie taken by a person whose name we have forgotten. This is the oldest known example of the classic
Kinda cool.
outstretched arm selfie technique. It was taken by Joseph Byron in 1909. Images like these were a significant step toward the eventual fourth wave selfie. The presence of a camera or arms or poles in the shot, evidence of how it was made, are hallmarks of the modern day selfie stereotype. For example, a 2013 ad campaign for the Cape Times reimagined famous historical photographs as selfies, and in every single one, an arm connecting the subject to the camera was used. 5 years after Byron's armed selfie, Anastasia Nikolaevna Romanova,
so pretty.
the youngest daughter of Tsar Nicholas II and great-granddaughter to Britain's Queen Victoria and Prince Albert, took this photo of herself. She was 13 years old at the time, so many have claimed it to be the first selfie ever taken by a teenager. But that's not true. In 1852, 61 years earlier, British chemist William Henry Perkin took this photo of himself when he was just 14.
He looks good.
Even though Anastasia wasn't the first teenager to take a selfie, in another way, she was. Unlike Perkins, whose shot feels like a self-portrait, she took pictures that feel much more like we today would call selfies.
Yeah.
The photos she took were personal. She sent them to friends to share her mood and daily life.
I love her.
Here she is posing with fake novelty teeth in 1915 or 16. 4 years after
Actual
taking
goat.
this famous selfie, her camera was confiscated. And not long after, Bolshevik revolutionaries executed her and her entire family together in a basement. Conclusive evidence of her death in 1918
Not what I
wasn't uncovered
expected.
until 2007. Although her work was cut short, she pioneered the use of photography as a social behavior, as a way to communicate, not just commemorate.
That's really cute.
She's been called the Kardashian of her day. But despite her influence, she was more of a trendsetter for hairstyles than photography. She didn't usher in a worldwide shift in behavior where young people everywhere started taking selfies. Camera manufacturers didn't rush to make self-portraiture easier, and articles weren't written about how great or how scary it was that young people were taking pictures of themselves. Though the modern-day selfie still wasn't born, it continued to gestate and kick within the womb. One such kick was the use of sticks and poles to activate a camera's shutter. In 1925,
that's cool.
newlyweds Arnold and
selfie
Helen
stick.
Hogg used a long pole to take this picture. In 1934, Helmer Larsen used a fallen tree branch to snap this selfie with his wife Naomi in Sweden.
They look so cute.
On Reddit, Chooch37 shared his grandfather using a selfie stick in the late 1940s. Here's one from 1957. And going back to 1920, here's Joseph Byron taking a handheld photograph with others. I mention this image because a second camera captured how it was taken, giving us an early depiction of what is now the recognizable human selfie pose. Now, what I think makes this image so significant is that it's another early taste of the selfie as we know it today. As Jens Ruschitz pointed out in
really
exploring
cool.
the selfie, if you Google self-portrait, you get a lot of self-portraits. There's only one image that shows someone making a self-portrait, Norman Rockwell's famous triple self-portrait. But if you Google selfie, a lot of what you get aren't selfies. They're pictures of people taking selfies. For the selfie as we know it today, the pose of taking one is just as, if not more, salient than the actual result. Blogs and articles containing outrage over people taking selfies in inappropriate places or when they should be behaving differently rarely complain about the actual images. They dislike the performance. In 2015, Joanne Paterna-Patania published a book of pictures of people taking selfies from which she had removed the environment, giving us what feel like selfie poses preserved in specimen jars. The idea that those taking photos can be a nuisance didn't begin with selfies. Far from it. There's a long tradition of photographers, especially tourists, raising eyebrows for being annoying, centering themselves over the location, and being predictably herd-like. For example, the Pisa pushers found in Italy. The modern-day selfie that was to come,
if I ever go to Italy,
makes a person look like a tourist everywhere they go. Not because everything suddenly became a landmark, but because people have always loved looking at themselves. And as cameras became small and easier to handle, it was inevitable that people would start snapping more self-portraits. Vivian Dorothy Meyer took really cool mirror selfies in the 1950s and 60s, but she kept them to herself. Her selfies were unknown and unpublished during her lifetime. A couple of years before her death, she failed to make payments on a storage unit she rented, and her works were auctioned off. 6 months after her death in 2009, a collector who had acquired them uploaded her images to Flickr, and they went viral, inspiring exhibitions, a documentary. A road in Paris was even named after her. The popularization of instant cameras in the 60s and 70s made taking selfies physically and mentally easier. You didn't need to know how to develop the film yourself or feel self-conscious turning in selfies to be developed. But instant cameras with mirrors on the front didn't come around until decades later. Selfies still hadn't reached a tipping point. In 1969, Michael Collins took the first reverse selfie, a photograph that contains everyone but yourself. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin are in this lander right here, and every human, living or dead at that time, is on this ball of rock. Only Collins himself, behind the lens, is absent. In 1983, Hiroshi Ueda submitted a patent for a telescopic extender for supporting a compact camera, an early selfie stick. And 2 years prior, Lester Wisbrod started what was to become a personal tradition, using his new autofocusing compact camera to snap selfies with famous people. Wisbrod was the pioneer of the celebrity selfie. Still though, no one was using the word selfie. Selfies hadn't become a thing yet. But then, something happened in Japan. In 1995, 19-year-old Toshikawa Hiromi, known as HiroMix, was nominated for the New Cosmos of Photography Award by world-renowned photographer Nobuyoshi Araki. She submitted a portfolio of snapshots she'd taken of her daily life, and she won the grand prize. There was already a unique culture of photo diary and photo booth use among young people in Japan, but HiroMix's sudden fame amongst teenagers and the educated elite made the practice a thing. Suddenly, young people all over Japan wanted to be like her. The New York Times called it HiroMix syndrome. Increased demand for cameras that made self-portraiture and proto-Instagramming easier led camera manufacturers to speed up the release of features that served immediate, frequent photography. HeroMix took a lot of photos, tens of thousands, and her work generated polarized reactions. Some critics adored
so
her,
pretty.
while others
That's me.
found it all baffling. Now, by the time
I adore her
selfies
too.
were called selfies, the same debate was started again, but it was about the behavior HeroMix had brought into focus more than a decade before. It's hard to say who took the first selfie, but in my opinion, HeroMix took the first selfie. Her work hastened and christened the arrival of the fourth wave selfie, the selfie as we know it today. Now, if it hadn't been her, it would have been someone else. People love looking at themselves, and it was becoming easier and easier to do so. But HeroMix popularized taking pictures of yourself as a social sharing activity, more akin to speaking than remembering, less a memory than a message. Nowhere is this more clear than in the story of the first camera phone picture. On June 11th, 1997, while his wife was in labor, Philippe Kahn jury-rigged together a makeshift system involving his StarTAC flip phone, a Casio QV, and a Toshiba laptop. When his daughter was born, he took a photo with the camera and used the laptop and phone connection to immediately email the image to more than 2,000 people.
Oh my god, that's
Social
so
media
weird.
is strongly associated with the fourth wave selfie, but as we've seen, it wasn't its origin. Instead, social media was simply a mouth that showed up later and demanded to be fed them. Online, we have no bodies. We can't just walk in and be seen. We have to
But on the
upload
metaverse.
images of our bodies for them to be there. Selfies are an easy solution because they don't require other people's help. But on top of that, there's a sense in which a photo of yourself taken by someone else is that person's point of view. It's their story. But a selfie? Well, a selfie's point of view doesn't belong to another person. When I look at a selfie of you, I'm not a third observer looking at you through someone else's eyes. It's just me looking at you. Selfies allow us to be online firsthand, not secondhand. In the same way that brown bears who migrated to the cold lands of the north evolved pale guard hairs and became polar bears, as humans migrated into the cold lands of the screen, they evolved selfies. By 2006, everyone knew that something was happening. The New York Times published an article that year about how young people were suddenly taking a lot of photos of themselves. Was it weird? What did it mean? Not once in the article is the word selfie used. But it could have been, because sometime between 1995 and 2006, the word selfie was born.
Yeah.
Selfie with a Y had been a word since the 1600s. It meant self-centered or selfish. But selfie with an IE is new. The earliest recorded usage of it is from a September 13th, 2002 post on Dr. Carl's Self-Serve Science Forum. Australian Nathan Hope uploaded an image he took of how busted up his lip had gotten, and he wrote, "Sorry about the focus, it was a selfie." Hope has been hailed as the inventor of the word selfie, but says himself that he probably heard it somewhere else first.
Yeah.
Which is likely. The word selfie is a hypocorism, a pet name, an affectionate, familiar, cuter version of an existing word. Australians are famous for doing this. Barbecue, Barbie. Mosquito, Mozzie. Australian,
Never thought
Aussie.
about this.
Self-portrait, selfie. They don't only
so cool.
use IE, they love O, S, and Z too. Australian English has given us probs, rando, totes, saws, preggers, and yes, even doggo. MySpace
Thank you,
was an early
Australians.
incubator of thriving selfie
Respect.
colonies. But in 2004, when Facebook launched as a serious social media platform for people at elite universities, there was a brief feeling that selfies were falling out of favor. However, when the iPhone 4 debuted with a front-facing camera in 2010, the selfie was declared officially back. In 2013, usage of the word selfie had jumped 17,000% in the last year. and Oxford dictionaries declared it the word of the year. Everyone knew what a selfie was. We started calling things that existed before the word selfies as well. But that is an anacronym, a word used out of place in time. Anacronyms can be words that have lingered around too long, like when we say we're dialing a number on a smartphone, even though actual turning dials are no longer involved. Or when we call this tinfoil, although it's actually the cheaper and more durable aluminum foil that superseded it. Anacronyms can also be words from today, like selfie, that barge back into the past, like calling these medieval church singers the first boy band. Nailing down the definition of a selfie in the modern sense is tricky, of course. Does a selfie need to be a photograph? If not, why? If so, do I need to be holding the camera? Does the use of a timer or a drone I'm not even touching mean that it's not a selfie, or just a different kind of selfie? Are humans a selfie since God made us in his image?
One day,
Because of
everything's
questions
gonna be
like
a
that,
selfie.
I prefer what I've been doing in this video. Just allow a selfie to mean anything that something has made that resembles itself or part of itself. That covers a lot of stuff, but can be broken down into 4 waves. First wave selfies are unintentional. The second wave began with the first deliberate depictions of oneself. The third, with photography's promise of recognizable self-depictions that were significantly more accessible. The fourth wave is when selfies became a thing, a cultural phenomenon motivated by a desire not just to have images, but to be images. Throughout the 20th century especially, we found ourselves increasingly surrounded by images, news, and travels and products and stories. The entire world outside our head could be seen like never before. Not in person, but through images. In the midst of this image world was the human animal, an organism that got to look at images, but wasn't one. Which was too bad, because to be an image was to be something. Well, selfies gave us that power. They put it in our own hands. Photography allows more of us than ever before to delay the third death. But the fourth wave selfie flattens the boundaries of time and space now. We can be anywhere, whenever. Does my face need to be depicted for it to be a selfie? Well, in October of 2013, Kim Kardashian posted this image on Instagram. Within a month, Belfie had been added to the Urban Dictionary. A Belfie is a selfie of your butt.
Oh.
But selfie, Belfie. Belfie guides and histories, and even a Belfie stick.
I need to read
soon
that
followed.
guide.
This all raises a serious question about society. If a selfie of your butt is called a Belfie, shouldn't a selfie of your face be called a Felfie? And as always, thanks for watching.
Gonna take a selfie real quick. That's really good. Oh wait, this is
Let me
long.
show you something I've been working on.
Whoa.
It is a star projector. It puts stars all over your bedroom.
I'm
and
a
who doesn't
star.
love that?
I don't know why I
Me.
said that.
Because it's always just the same stars I could see if I went outside. That's why mine is different. It shows the night sky not from Earth, but as seen on TRAPPIST-1e, an exoplanet that was one of the first targets of the new Webb telescope, because it's very likely to be friendly to life. Whether or not anything lives there, we don't know yet. But what we do know is that it is the furthest known habitable exoplanet from which the naked human eye could still see our sun.
That's cool.
You can turn on this projector and see us just as others might. Alien others. Problem is, the Curiosity Box is a limited edition thing, and the box this comes in already sold out. That's why it's important to join now. We are now taking pre-orders for our winter box, and for the holidays, it's 50% off. I won't spill too many beans, but the winter box contains something that will help you if you have no choice. Don't miss our best deal of the year. Get your first box for just $30. That's 50%
Taj.
off by using code Black Friday. And don't forget that Mel Science is now part of our family. It's the perfect way to get your kids thinking and curious. Let me put my brain food into your gray matter mouth.
I
Join
I was sold
today.
before that line. Now I'm scared. I'm gonna not sleep after this. Um, that, I enjoy modern Vsauce videos quite a bit. That was really good. I'm excited for the next one in like 2 months. Um, I do think like selfies are just like such an interesting, fascinating concept to me, like on its own. Like I think they're really cool, you know? Big fan. Another example of a perfect explainer video. This was really well done. Yes. Love the classic Vsauce music. Feels so nostalgic these days. Glad it's still being used. It is great music. Michael is one of like 5 YouTubers uploading consistent, high quality videos that are interesting for more than 10 years. Edit. Okay, yes, it's more than 5. Fair. Crazy to look back at myself going from a teenager watching these videos as they came out weekly, having them be part of my routine, to now in my late 20s getting a rush of nostalgia from hearing the Vsauce jingle play. Thank you for being part of my life for the last 13 years, Michael. It's really cute. I appreciate. Okay, where are people commenting on the video though? These black and white old photos of legit selfies feel so eerily real. I know why that is, thanks to Vsauce, yet I still struggle with how not old the people appear. Yeah, it is really interesting. Like that, just that concept in that video that he did on like, what was it called again? Did people used to look older? Like that was such an interesting video. I really enjoyed it. Selfies and selfies can all be called selfies since they are also selfies of your skin. So true. IDKY, but it never occurred to me that the term selfie was probably Australian in origin. In retrospect, it makes perfect sense we started popularizing it. In school, we had mostly shorter nicknames ending in every vowel for just about everything. Australians like have cool language. Their slang is on point. Okay. Anastasia's selfies are so interesting to look at because they really do look exactly like something that would be taken today. People don't change, it's the world that does, and we may adapt with it, but deep down we're all still the same. It's an oddly comforting thought. I do think, like, especially with selfies, because you can take so many, like, it's really easy to take selfies that look like other people's, but it's interesting to have, like, that little spark and to, like, understand, like, what someone might be feeling in that moment. It's so neat. I really like it. I'm such a fan. Wait, actually, I wonder if there's another comment that I want to read. Michael openly confessing to a federal crime to start a video is actually completely in character. I, yeah, little sus. Just a little. Can still remember before social media websites became popular, taking a photo of yourself was looked down on. But back then, every photo you would take was pretty much for your eyes only, aside from the family photo album. I guess I didn't really live in this period, but I feel like it probably depended on who you were with. The idea of taking a photo of yourself that no one but you would see was seen as strange behavior. Most people would think, why not just look in the mirror? Because you want to capture something in the moment. I remember back in the 60s, my aunt took a Polaroid of herself while at the park and put it in her family photo album. While visiting during a holiday, the family was going through that same album when they stumbled upon the photo of herself. My other aunt, who had the book in her lap, said, "Ha, did you take a photo of yourself? That's so weird." At the time, everyone laughed because it was weird. Definitely, yeah, I feel like back then it would be weird, but I feel like they're just so interesting, like conceptually. Like I wish there were more selfies of people who are older because you can like see what they were like in that time period instead of like Pisa said, like an image of someone else, and like I feel like it's more candid. I mean, obviously you can take candids without like having a selfie, and I mean also selfie candids are kind of uh non-existent in the true sense of the word, but It's very personal. You get to like give what you're trying to give, you know? Anyways, fan of this video. Thank you so much for watching, folks. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye. Hey folks, thank you so much for watching. Remember to like the video, subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitch, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.